Alright, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So the title of today's video is Ethereum Network, Dapp Network, Eos Network. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the three networks, the three network infrastructures, and why I think they will honestly end up being the big three as far as critical blockchain infrastructure. I think there will be multiple blockchains um, competing at every layer. But the way I see it right now, the way I'm looking at it right now, the way I envision it, I think Ethereum is doing very well for a base layer smart contract platform. Um, it has a huge trust in the community. It's got a lot of developers. It has a lot of support worldwide, globally. It's been around for a while. It does what it's supposed to do. It executes smart contracts, and they are about to go through a new they're about to bring on Ethereum 2.0, so they're about to do the upgrade, and Ethereum 2.0 is going to bring a lot more scalability to the Ethereum network, and it's going to transition Ethereum from a proof of work blockchain, which we know is highly unsustainable as far as energy consumption, to a proof of stake blockchain. Proof of work, proof of stake has plenty of positives versus proof of work, in terms of security, not just in terms of energy consumption. But I always think of energy consumption being a big improvement, because I know for a blockchain to be sustainable long term, it's going to have to adopt some sort of proof of stake model that is less energy consumption based, because governments around the world are going to encourage it, and eventually I think that will just become a thing where people, you know, want it to be that way. This is my opinion. I could be wrong. There are definitely benefits to proof of work. I'm not going to sit here and deny those, but proof of stake, you should definitely look into it as far as the comparisons from proof of work, because it's also a lot harder to 51% a proof of stake network versus a proof of work network, because at the end of the day, in a proof of work network, you can buy all the materials you need to mine, and then when you're done you can still sell it, whereas in a proof of stake network, that's not really a possibility, like on the Ethereum network. But Ethereum network has proven that it can be very useful as far as the DeFi movement, as far as, you know, any type of way that we can handle finance on the blockchain. The finance industry in general is very antiquated. It is very out of date. You don't get great returns in any market. And Ethereum promises to be able to make a better financial system, be a more attractive place for big money players to park their money and potentially get bigger returns without the middleman jumping and putting their hand in. So Ethereum will, I believe, succeed just based on the network effect it has, the number of developers building on the platform, the utility that the token has as far as being gas or fuel for the Ethereum network. There's no way to bypass it. You need ETH in order to utilize the Ethereum network. So I think Ethereum is carving its way out very significantly as that sort of base layer protocol that all I believe value will sort of be on. Anything that needs extreme decentralization to the point that there is, you know, no chance that the network could be taken down. I think Ethereum will end up being the last line of defense, because you got to understand that Ethereum is a global network that anybody can pick up and mine, and in the future when it transitions 2.0 proof of stake, anybody will be able to by the 32 ETH requirement and then stake on the network and become a validator on the network. And there will be thousands, probably maybe millions of validators on the Ethereum network, and then that will ultimately be something that no matter what any government or any central authority around the world tries to do, they will not be able to shut that down, because as soon as you shut down one miner or validator on the network, another one pops up, and so forth, so on and so forth. So if you think about it like that, there's Ethereum I could see being the last line of defense. And even if you were to attack maybe the higher layer infrastructure, it really wouldn't matter, because everything is still going to somehow be saved by the base layer. Now I want to talk about Dapp Network. I think Dapp Network is going to be huge, because I think it's already proving that it can accomplish inter-blockchain communication. There was already an example that was shared all over the place on Twitter, where using the Dapp network and the DSP services, Liquid Link, they were able to communicate between an Ethereum node and an EOS node, and they were successfully able to not just move a token from blockchain to blockchain, but they were able to do what you would call computations. They were able to do computations. They were able to move computations from Ethereum, compute them on EOS. And I watched the interview with Ivan on Tech and Benny, and he made several great points in that interview. I learned a lot just from that interview. Ivan is really good at asking questions, and Benny is really good at explaining how the Dapp network functions. And basically, what I took from that is that, anybody who wants to house their token or their project on Ethereum will be able to do that, and they will be able to offload computations onto possibly an EOS IO network, because EOS does have half-a-second transaction times, and this is something that EOS IO has natively, and it's only as time goes by getting faster and scaling more and more, and adding more and more features to the code, which is all open source, that is going to be perfect for a Dapp layer. So Ethereum on the base layer, Dapp network right above that, and EOS above that, as a layered ecosystem that can allow for mainstream adoption of decentralized applications. Because in order to have decentralized applications, you need to have a system that can facilitate it. And in order to have decentralized applications to run just like centralized server client applications run, you need to pretty much hide the blockchain in general. And EOS is the only infrastructure that does that. EOS IO is the only code base that successfully is doing that. And there's all sorts of EOS chains. There's, EOS mainnet, there's Telos, there's, a whole bunch of just EOS, just spin-offs. They're all using EOS IO, and they're all approaching things in a slightly different way. So, for the people who think that, EOS has governance problems, even though it looks like a lot of these problems are about to be solved, because there's a lot of brilliant minds brainstorming about these things, they will solve it, because at the end of the day, there's no limit to the amount of attempts we have here, because at the end of the day, EOS IO is a code base, and a code base needs to constantly be updated, and we'll figure it out. And if you don't like the governance of one let's just say, example, the EOS mainnet. You might want to use Telos or something else, and you can do that, and it's going to offer a lot of the same benefits that the mainnet does. I personally think the mainnet is on its way to being a mass adoption machine where everybody just comes onto the EOS mainnet because governance is not a problem, scalability is there, and as well as the network effect is there. So I think personally my money's on the EOS mainnet, but I'm just saying this is something that can happen. There's no reason that there couldn't be some sort of transition. And the way Benny put it in the interview made a lot of sense. He talked about EOS as a OS, and that is honestly what I've been thinking about, but I didn't really, when he said that, it just made it all click for me. EOS as an operating system, it just made everything click. To me, that makes perfect sense. EOS as an operating system, Ethereum as like what do you call it? Maybe BIOS. You ever like start up a Windows computer and you hit like F12, and like the BIOS pops up, that black screen? That's kind of how I feel like Ethereum is. It's like not user friendly at all. There's no user friendliness about it. You just kind of end up there on accident like one day and you're like, oh, what's going on? I think in the future that's how Ethereum will be. Like, it'll be there running, but it'll just be one of those things that your average everyday person will never touch, never use. And if you ever find any trace of it, you're like, oh, what is this? I need to get out of here. Whereas EOS could be like a Windows 7 operating system. You know, everybody loved Windows 7. Even like your regular users like were addicted to Windows 7, and you know, I think that's going to be the front-facing interface. EOS is going to be, I think, at the end of the day, more well-known in the future if it accomplishes, if both blockchain protocols succeed. I think EOS would be the more front-facing interface, and then Dapp network is pretty much that layer in between. I guess we could compare it to maybe drivers, you know, because drivers are the software that allows the hardware to sort of communicate with the operating system. So I guess maybe drivers, and they do all that middle stuff in between that allows the operating system and the BIOS to, you know, communicate in a way that makes sense for a good user experience. So that's the way I see it. I see both projects ultimately in a great light. I think they're both on the right track in order to achieve long-term sustainability. EOS has gotten, I mean, both projects have gotten the goal from the SEC, you know, so we're not going to be considered a security. And it just looks like there's just nothing but good news as far as upgrades on the way. Now I believe is the best time to be in crypto. Like, this next 6 months, like, don't let anybody discourage you. This next 6 months is going to be absolutely massive in terms of growth and vision, and the buzz will definitely return to these markets soon. So, you know, just hold out, chill out. Almost there, guys. You know, you made it this far, don't sell now. And that's it for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one.